Hey, I'm CARBO brother. I'm Chris Nelson, president of CARBO. Really excited to introduce a new Ruger PC Carbine all-in-one Pro Performance bundle. We took the best of the best of what we had, put it in one easy bundle, hopefully one easy video to follow, drop it all in, get the most night and day effect, get the most performance, accuracy, and reliability out of your PC Carbine. Really took a lot of time to develop a ton of these parts in conjunction with the MCARBO Brotherhood. That's why we love you guys, man. You always give us the best ideas in terms of the problems you're experiencing with these firearms, and collectively together just making them better and better. Really love that. We were totally re-energized to see Ruger do something a little more tactical, a little more functional with the PC Carbine. Initially it was just a hunting stock, so this is the newer configuration here, you know, with the pistol grip, chassis system, AR-15 buttstock, you know, it's the Magpul MOE buttstock that comes with it. Love it. Adjustable, whole 9 yards. So snout to tail, we've got the muzzle brake, extended charging handle, extended magazine release, flat aluminum trigger, ton of upgrades internally, not to mention the spring kit to reduce the trigger pull by 50%. Love that. Let's get on the tabletop, show you how we did it. Parts needed for this build: Ruger PC Carbine all-in-one Pro Performance bundle includes 11 different improvements that we've really taken our time to develop. Finally, we have a one-stop shop, easy purchase, easy to drop in, easy to install, get that nice night and day effect from one single bundle. So here it is, really excited about it. We're gonna make a video, obviously, to show you a good way to put it all together rather than having to watch each individual video. All right, so this is what you get. Obviously, you get a little information about us, sticker, and then you got a taco of performance here. Taco Tuesday performance, baby. So really excited about this, man. This is awesome. Long overdue, but we wanted to make sure we had enough stuff to do all at once, and we really, just like we did with the sub, you know, kind of ran away with a lot of these pain points that you guys were having, and we definitely created a ton of different solutions for them. And it's so great to see the support and you guys just snapping them up left and right, even put us out of stock on quite a few things. So very much appreciate you guys and all the support. So ton of items here. I'm going to try to make this as straightforward and quick and painless as possible. I'm going to avoid going in too much long-winded detail on what it'll do. There's plenty of videos you can take a look at and watch individual segments on each particular item. You know, I've covered them all before, what it'll do for you, how it's going to improve it, but I'll quickly run through what do we got here on the table. Ruger PC Carbine muzzle brake. It's A311 stress-proof carbon steel. It's got a nice port on the top to help control some of that muzzle rise. Nice 45-degree ports on the side to help reduce some of that felt recoil. Also includes the necessary hardware to mount it. Really excited about this one. It works from 9 and 40, 2 options available. And then you can see the extra power recoil spring really does an excellent job to improve the cycling operations. Previously with the factory spring, it's a little clunky and slow and not really as efficient. It's 15% stronger, really improves the efficiency, helps make it a much more functional firearm internally. It takes a lot of these items together to get the most desired effect, which is why I love the bundles, because it forces you to put it all in at once, and then you're like, man, this is night and day. So extra power recoil spring goes great with the recoil spring retainer. This is stainless steel to replace the factory one. So this shock buffer is great for reducing shock and wear on the internal parts, and also reducing some shock on the shooter. So you've got a nice medium durometer rubber here, and then you got a nice hard glass-filled nylon that encases it. So really awesome molded part. These 3 items work really well together to give you that nice complete replacement, always shoring up any loose ends, especially little plastic parts that could just lead to a catastrophic malfunction. And then we've got our A2 tool steel bolt head pins and extractor pin kit. All right, these are A2 tool steel to Rockwell 50 hardness, similar to that of an axe head. So it's really overkill. You definitely don't need that much hardness, but we designed this stuff to last a lifetime, hence the lifetime guarantee. It's nice reassurance, and it's nice peace of mind. So also we've got our A2 tool steel Rockwell 50 extractor, wire EDM, and this is down to 4 decimal points in terms of precision. These guys, man, that have been reporting back all the feedback just are in absolute love with it because it eliminates a lot of those failure to extract malfunctions. A lot of guys typically will get failure to extract malfunctions after about 500 to 1,000 rounds, all right, give or take. So typically that stamp part that comes from the factory is just not really designed very well, and if you compare these little edges, you'll be blown away at how the factory one is just rounded. I have no idea what they were shooting for there, but definitely missed the mark a little bit. So happy you guys have really enjoyed this new extractor. And then here's 2 external upgrades as well. So we got an extended charging handle. It's longer and it's wider. 6061 aircraft grade aluminum. Same with the extended magazine release. Black hard coat anodized. Really love these parts. Nice gator back texturing on this extended magazine release. It's longer to help you find it, make it easier to press. Same with the charging handle. It's longer, it's wider, easier to manipulate, control the function of the bolt, of the magazine release. much more easier controls to make you much more efficient, faster, just giving you a much better competitive edge on your PC carbine all around. Really love these. Then these three go together. These three are in the trigger group here. So you got your trigger spring kit, includes a lighter hammer spring, lighter sear spring, lighter trigger return spring, great 55% reduction in trigger pull. Putting this baby in, can't wait. Not to mention the flat trigger as well. Flat triggers in general allow you to pull lower on the trigger, which is why they're so much more popular than the standard curved trigger. You can really get low on that trigger. It feels lighter, gives you more leverage, and it's just a much smoother, easier trigger pull. I mean, everybody that is an experienced shooter is just the tip of the finger there and trying to get as low as possible on that trigger, man. Flat is the way to go. So it's already got minimal pre-travel designed into it, and then the over travel's got a nice set screw adjustment here. So really love what we got there, 6061 aircraft grade aluminum. So a nice smooth trigger pull adjustment with the spring kit and the trigger together, giving you that overall desired effect, what you're looking for. Instead of that plastic molded trigger like you got here with a long massive curve, looks like a Talon hook on a Velociraptor. Not really conducive to what we're trying to achieve here. We want a nice, smooth, predictable, clean braking trigger every time. So I love what we got with that kit here. Since we're in the trigger group already, the stainless steel trigger group pin kit is a must. I love how it corrects a lot of simple mistakes. So some of the geometry was just too loose. The pins that are in their factory fall right out. So that bolt stop release pin from the factory falls right out. This is gonna shore that up. And then the hammer hinge pin takes up the full length of the trigger housing, unlike the factory one, which is about 200 thousandths too short. Just not good enough. Not cutting it. I have no idea why they went so short. I guess save time material. So great upgrades all around. There's 11 of them there. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into this baby. Hopefully make it quick. That's only as long-winded as I'm gonna get. Rest is all down and dirty, DIY, how we do it. Tools needed for this build: 1/16 inch punch, 3/32 inch punch, 1/8 inch punch, hammer, bench block. You're gonna need assortment Allen keys, so you don't have to have T-handles, but I got them here. 5/32 inch Allen key, 3/32 inch Allen key, a 5/64 inch Allen key, synthetic grease at PTFE, little micro tip flathead screwdriver, a 13/16 wrench or an adjustable wrench. Highly recommend the adjustable, but if you got 13/16, that's perfect. Gonna need some masking tape. These items are for the muzzle brake, so the masking tape and the wrenches, either one will work. And as always, guys, make sure we're an iPro. Let's go ahead and check our firearms together, make sure they're clear. Check the chamber, check the bolt face, check the magazine well. This firearm's clear. Let's go ahead and check our factory trigger pull, see what we're starting with. 4 pounds, 11.7 ounces. Let's take one more to confirm. 4 pounds, 11 ounces even. All right, let's go ahead and get started with a good field strip here. So what we need to do is remove the barrel. To do that, we need to lock the bolt back first. All right, hit the little bolt lock right down there. Now we're gonna go ahead and hit the release under the barrel, pull it forward towards the tip of the barrel, and then rotate 45 degrees on that barrel, and it'll slide right off while holding that release. All right, set the barrel down. Now we can look at the receiver and chassis system on this new one with this AR-15 buttstock configuration and pistol grip, which is awesome. This installation will also work for the other variation, the older style with the hunting stock. There's only a couple differences though on this style versus the old style. On this style, there's a takedown screw here, and there's a takedown screw on top right here. On the hunting stock style, there's one in the front and one in the rear, and they're both universal and the same. All right, I'm gonna start with removing the charging handle first. It's always the easiest to forget. What we need to do is let that bolt go forward. So pull back, let it go forward. Now take your 5/32 inch Allen key or T-handle. We're gonna go ahead and remove the charging handle. So get it all the way down in there. Get a good bite on it. It's under a good amount of tension, Loctite. There it is. We'll definitely wanna replicate the same factory parts here. What we'll do is we'll start a bag. Definitely gonna have a lot of leftover parts here in a minute. It's always handy to keep them. Now go ahead and turn it upright. Take your 5/32 inch Allen key again. We're gonna remove this front takedown screw here. You can see there's a front takedown screw, standard length. You know, if you got the old style stock, you're gonna have 2 universal in this case. Short one is the front takedown screw. Yeah, man, my hand's busted, but we're driving on. I always get 1 or 2 comments. There's the front takedown screw. If you got the old style, it'll be right back here, the second one. All right, now we're gonna rotate it over on this new style and remove this rear takedown screw. All right, you can see much different, much longer. There's no way to mess them up. We're definitely gonna make sure we put some blue Loctite on there just to make sure it doesn't back out. Don't want things coming loose. Now you'll notice the pistol grip comes right off, just like that. You don't need to remove anything further. You know, there's this little insert here that closes the gap between the trigger guard and the actual pistol grip. If you wanted to remove that, there's a screw down in there, just like your standard AR-15 pistol grip. You know how you gotta remove that screw to get the grip off your AR-15? Same concept. You can set that aside, don't need to go any further. All right, man, so we've got the takedown screws out. All we need to do at this point, take your palm of your hand, give it a good little hit on this trigger guard here as you're holding on the side of the chassis so you can drop it right out. It definitely is a little snug, especially if it's the first time you're taking it out. All right, and if you get there, you're gonna have to kind of wiggle it up just a little bit. It's snug on there. So there's your chassis system. I know it sounds a little trendy, but this is what it is. You know, chassis just encases the receiver. We don't have a real stock here. This is all we've got for a quote-unquote stock. We're gonna need to come back to this so we can put the extended magazine release on, just like we're gonna have to go back to the barrel there in a minute, put the actual muzzle brake on. But first, we're gonna get down to the nitty-gritty here, get into the trigger group, get into all the internal parts here in the receiver, and make sure we got all that squared away first. All right, man, now that I got done drying her all off, brand new from the factory, she was pretty oily there. Take your 1/8 inch punch. We're gonna push out these two takedown pins right here. It's what locates the trigger group into the receiver. They're universal, they're the same. Make sure you get them all the way out there. Universal, same pins. Set those aside, pull up and out on the trigger group there. Pretty simple and straightforward, much easier than the 1022 actually, less components in there. So it'll be pretty easy to jump into here in a minute. Set it aside. Take your micro tip flathead. We're just gonna use it to help us guide out this buffer and recoil spring. You just wanna pull it forward enough so you can get a bite on that buffer and pull the whole thing up and out. Always feels like it's gonna break because you're dealing with that little plastic retainer clip right there. You won't have to worry about that here soon. So you got your bolt here, and then you've got your bolt top, this piece here that integrates with it just like a little puzzle piece, slides right in. Then your recoil spring, your buffer, a little plastic retainer in there. All three of these items are getting replaced. So we can set that bolt top aside. All right, we can look at the bolt here. We're actually missing a bolt head pin. Look at that. No idea. Hold on, let me see where it's at. I mean, this is brand new from the factory, shipped to us. Nobody has even taken it apart, and we're actually missing a bolt head pin from the factory. Wonderful. So you know how difficult it is to try to get parts from Ruger? You usually have to send the whole firearm back, even to get a missing pin. You got to send it back. They won't even just send you a pin. At least from our experience in the past, maybe they've gotten a little better, but not sure. If anybody's got any insight on that, love to hear it. So the bolt head pins, just mild steel, nothing fancy. These two are gonna be, well, this one, and then we're gonna fill this hole. Then the extractor pin, all right, we're gonna replace that. And then the actual extractor right here. So we'll dive into all of this in a good systematic format, put it all back together, simple as possible. So all we have to do, take our little micro tip, push down on the bolt head itself right here as you pry out this last remaining bolt head pin. There it is right there. You can see some wear already. Not a good start, plus we're already missing one. And then the extractor pin, what we'll do is push down on the extractor, pop that out. But for simplicity's sake, and if you're following along, let's go ahead and replace these so we don't have any components exploding all over the place. Got your bolt head pin kit here. Let's go and open it up. All right, so there's your A2 tool steel Rockwell 50 replacements. So we got our two bolt head pins, our extractor pin, have that ready here in a second. Go ahead and make sure holes are lined up with the actual bolt head itself right here. And these are, nothing even moved on us. Drop these little bolt head pins right in, simple. Now the extractor pin, we need to remove that. You can press down on the extractor right here on the side if necessary, if you're having a hard time getting it out, but it should be pretty easy to get out. Just kind of use your finger there to press on it. It pops right out, and there's your extractor. So you can see how that's oriented in there, a little curve facing forward. We'll compare these two here. All right, so there's your factory parts. Here's your A2 tool steel, exact edge extractor. Love this, wire EDM cut, precision. I mean, this is 4 decimal points here. It doesn't get any tighter than that. And I guarantee we put in a lot more time, detail, and attention in the factory. And I get it, man, you know, they gotta keep costs low. These are just some kind of stamped part, mild steel. This was nothing that they put in a ton of precision or work into. It's just a matter of getting them out the door. We improved some geometry to make sure it performed a lot better. Love it. All right, so put the factory one aside. Here's factory pins, all greasy. So we're gonna put in our A2 tool steel Rockwell 50 extractor with improved geometry, nice sharp hook there, and then our A2 tool steel Rockwell 50 pin. Make sure you've got your extractor spring in there. Drops right in that little pocket. Then we drop in our extractor, a little sharp pointy end facing the interior here. So we're gonna drop it right in. We're gonna line up those holes by pressing on the back end of that extractor. You can see how those holes line up just like that, and then drop your pin right in. Good solid little snap. And that's exactly what we want right there. All right, so the bolt's done. You can take your factory parts. You might as well, you know, if you ever have to send it back for warranty work or anything, be a good idea to go ahead and throw all those factory parts on. But hopefully you don't. We've got enough components for the PC at this point to where you can almost rebuild it, and we're doing more. So if you got ideas or you got any problems, let us know. We're all about replacing and fixing problems. So we'll set the bolt aside for now. We got the bolt top here. We're gonna go ahead and replace a good majority of this. So grab your bench block, set it up in your bench block just like this. Put your bolt top right there in the center, and we're gonna press right down so we can get that retainer loose. So push down, and that retainer, push down a little further, and that retainer basically comes right off like that. You can see there's a recessed portion on the top. I'll show you how it locates here in a second. So we'll pull off that plastic, quote unquote, buffer. Factory spring, won't be needing that. Now on the guide rod there, you'll notice how it locates, just like that. So we're gonna replicate that. All right, you can see the little recess right there, how it sits in there, and then there's a flat end, does nothing. Gives you a little point of reference. All right, we're gonna just replicate the entire thing. So let's do that. So go ahead and grab your shock buffer, your stainless steel retainer, and your extra power recoil spring. Open all those up. You're gonna have plenty of targets to shoot at, so if you need some targets, you've got plenty in this bundle. Extra power recoil spring, stainless steel recoil spring retainer, Ruger PC Carbine overmolded shock buffer, got a nice medium durometer, rubber here, encased in that glass-filled nylon. This thing is indestructible. We did a lot of destructive testing with this. Really love how the MCARBO Brotherhood showed up again and did a lot of good initial testing for us, all that feedback, love it. So if you're not in the forum, it's a great reason to get in the forum. We do all of our initial testing with the forum, trust those guys, and we always appreciate their input. All right, so when we're putting this back together, you'll notice the guide rod, you know, if it goes all the way down and touches the table, it's no good. So what we want to do, find one of these little holes. I'm just using the smallest hole here in the bench block. It's kind of a way to hold it, all right, and it's not going to go all the way through. We're going to compress that recoil spring, and it may help to use the shock buffer to push down. We want to make sure we can compress it enough, hold it in place, and then take our little stainless steel retainer and just get it to slip right on there, release the tension, and it's all captured, just like that. So we're all set there. Now we just grab our bolt, slide in the bolt top, goes together one nice little unit like that. And then the key here is we're going to rotate it over. Now, do be a little cautious. You know, these pins could fall out. If you got an issue with that, you put a little synthetic grease on it, help hold them in. But I don't anticipate too much of a problem. It's just more of shaking it or anything like that. So we're gonna make sure they're good and flat. We're ready to go. Grab your receiver. All right, buttstock end is down here. Forward end of the receiver there. We're gonna rotate it. We're gonna drop it kind of at a 90 like this, almost. And then quickly slide it down, and then push forward on that shock buffer and get it all the way in there. That new extra power spring is a little stiffer. So we're gonna also push down again. It may look like it's in there, but it's not. So what helps is take your little flathead, push forward a little bit, and then push straight down. Make sure it fully seats down in there. And you'll know if it's not when you go to put the trigger guard back in. Holes won't line up. And we designed this where the holes will just line up perfectly so that you can drop your pins right in. All right, good. So we can do a quick little check. Oh man. That is a good amount of tension on there. That's gonna be so great for the cycling operations. You're kind of sluggish previously with the factory spring. You know, it's gonna really make it much more efficient. It's gonna be a well-oiled machine when we're done here. I can't wait. Now we can put the receiver aside and focus on the trigger group. Pretty simple and straightforward. Actually less parts than on the 1022 trigger group. So real easy to see and understand. You can let this trigger go forward, see the hammer strut, hammer spring. One thing good to point out now is getting that alignment of the hammer strut there in that hole, so that when we pull back on the hammer, it's got clearance to go through and lock and locate. We're gonna remove the trigger hinge pin, trigger pivot, as it's called in exploded view. Bolt stop pin right here. This one notoriously just falls out. Surprised it didn't fall out, maybe because it's brand new, hasn't been used hardly at all. And then the hammer hinge pin. You can see how much of that pin is actually recessed in the housing. It doesn't fit completely from one side to the other. So we'll look over here, and it's not really flush. So if you release the tension, you can push it till it's flush on this side here. Doesn't need to be recessed as much as this is. So you can see how much we're missing here of the pin for the hammer hinge pin. So we've got obviously stainless steel replacements to replace all three of these pins, you know, doing different things, more improved geometry. It's gonna be a much more precise fit, especially here in the bolt stop. I don't really wanna let it all fall apart. Let's do this systematically. We'll go through it and replace everything one by one, just to make it simple as possible. So we'll start off with straight up disassembly. All right, let this hammer go forward. We're gonna push out on that hammer hinge pin there. There's the hammer hinge pin. It's the larger of the three pins on the trigger group. Pull out our hammer. You can see the orientation. It See the hammer face there. Set that down. Then we got our hammer strut with the spring captured, and you got the little hammer strut washer down here. It's universal here, no precise orientation. Pretty simple so far. And then inside we've got the trigger. So we're gonna push out on this trigger pivot, trigger hinge pin here. Inside, notice that you've got this detent and return spring. So your trigger return spring's in there with the detent, kind of sits at a weird angle. So it's not exactly straight, which is kind of weird. I always like to point that out ahead of time because it's definitely something that would throw you off otherwise. It's kind of bizarre. I know it threw us off initially, but it's how they designed it. All right, there's our trigger hinge pin. We're gonna pull out our actual trigger. We'll go over that here in closer detail. And then you've got your trigger return spring in the detent. And you can see how it sits in at an angle there. You can see that little seam line from the mold there in the center, and you can see how it's clearly at an angle. All right, that's normal. So what we'll do is we'll pull out that little detent and the factory trigger return spring, kind of keep it all together, and we'll go through and replace everything. So there's our stripped down trigger housing, minus the safety and the bolt stop. And we might as well go ahead and pull this bolt stop out. It actually hasn't fallen out. That's crazy, very unusual. So just push out on that bolt stop pin, and your bolt stop will come out just like that, and then your bolt stop spring right here, captured right in the housing there. Pretty straightforward. All right, so we got the trigger group mostly stripped down on the PC Carbine, so you can see your trigger housing here. Here's your hammer hinge pin, the bigger of the three. All right, these two are actually universal. So hammer hinge pin, hammer, your hammer strut, hammer spring, hammer strut washer, your trigger return spring and detent here, your trigger assembly, and we're gonna rip that apart here in a second. Bolt stop spring, and then these two pins which are universal. So one of them would go with the bolt stop, the other would go with the trigger, and it goes right through this hole right here, the forward hole. So as you can see, the trigger houses the sear and the disconnector here, and very critical operation right here. We want to replicate this and make sure it functions exactly like this. So we're going to move these parts over to the new flat-faced aluminum trigger. Just like to leave it all contained and captured for now because we don't really need to rip it all apart this second. Let's get the MCARBO replacement parts out and we can go through and systematically replace all these items. All right, so we got our flat-faced aluminum trigger by MCARBO for the PC Carbine, 6061 aircraft grade aluminum. Just beautiful. We've got this over travel adjustment screw here, and it's designed with as minimal pre-travel as possible, and a little Allen key that comes with it to make that over travel adjustment. Go ahead and set this down right here. Start stacking up our replacement parts. Our stainless steel trigger group pin kit includes the bolt stop pin, the trigger hinge pin, and the hammer hinge pin. You can see all three pins there. Two are universal and your hammer hinge pin, the longest one. Then our PC Carbine trigger spring kit to reduce that trigger pull. Lighter hammer spring, lighter trigger return spring, and lighter disconnector spring here. So disconnector spring's the shortest, trigger return spring right there in the middle, hammer the longest. All right, let's go ahead and replace all these pins that we got laying out here. So we'll grab the MCARBO pins, do a quick side-by-side comparison. So stainless steel pins, more exact geometry, help give you the most functional benefit. Full length hammer hinge pin, not like this little shorty right here. Got the nice 45-degree tapers on the ends on all three pins. And then obviously we've got our pins to replace the two universal pins for the trigger hinge pin and the bolt stop pin. Get our stock parts in a bag. Let's go ahead and swap over all the parts on the trigger to the actual flat-faced aluminum trigger. So all we have to do is just push out this single pin right here that holds the disconnector in place. So just take your 3/32 inch punch, push it all the way through. There's that little pin. We're going to reuse that, and then we're going to pull out the rest of the components. Try to slowly do this. There we go. Nice little demonstration there. All right, so you get a good idea how it all goes together. So we're going to replicate exactly that. So inside the trigger, this is what you got going on. You got your sear disconnector, your disconnector spring, and that disconnector pin. So let's do exactly that for the aluminum trigger. We're going to set it up exactly the same way. Let's swap out this factory stiffer disconnector spring. Throw it in the bag over there, grab our MCARBO disconnector spring. It's a little shorter one. So we get our trigger, we're gonna drop in our sear just like that. Grab our disconnector spring, drop it right in that little pocket you can see cut out there on the sear. Grab our disconnector, drop it right in. That little hook is gonna go down under the sear, and you'll notice there's a little pocket on the underside of the disconnector as well. See that? So that's gonna rest right on top of that disconnector spring. And then we're gonna compress it, hold it in place, line those holes up, drop that pin right in. So drop the pin in and flip it over so I can look on the opposite side there as I press that pin right through. Pretty easy. Let's just check and make sure we got the same function. Beautiful. Obviously, we got to get that trigger hinge pin in place once it goes back installed. All right, go ahead and lock it in place. Make sure the pin stays captured. So we're going to take our Allen key here, and we're going to back out this little set screw. We want to get some good blue 242 Loctite on there just to make sure it stays in place. We also want to set the over travel while we're at it. So we'll set that trigger down for a second. Get rid of our little plastic trigger. Give you a quick little side-by-side comparison. Major difference. That's going to be great. All right, so ditch the plastic. Put a little drop blue 242 Loctite on that over travel adjustment screw. Grab the trigger. Let's thread it all the way in. All right, once you got it threaded all the way in, we're going to back it off 2 full rotations. That's going to get us started right in the ballpark where we want to be for that over travel adjustment. 1, 2. So we should have about 5 threads showing. Let's count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that threading it all the way in, then backing it off 2 full rotations is what we found to be easiest, fastest way to set the over travel adjustment. So that's good to go. We can make minor adjustments if needed, but I highly doubt we will need to. So we can go ahead and swap out the factory trigger return spring, throw it in our bag of extra pieces here, grab the MCARBO lighter trigger return spring, set it up on that detent there. Let's go ahead and just throw it in the trigger guard now so we don't forget. You know, I'm a big fan of using synthetic grease with PTFE as glue almost. Just helps keep everything captured, because when we start to put this all back together, you don't want the detent to fall out. I mean, it just gets really annoying and can be one of those things that just drives you nuts. So might as well just go ahead and do that. So put a little dab of PTFE on there. It's going to keep that spring captured on that detent. A little way to save yourself some headache. Go ahead and insert it inside the trigger assembly just so we don't forget it. Set that down. All right, now let's go ahead and switch out the hammer springs. So what we need to do is grab our bench block. You know, I like to use that medium hole there. Stick in the head of the hammer strut there, right into the hole. And you're going to compress that spring, and it's pretty stiff. So it may be helpful to use your micro tip. Just kind of grab a coil on that factory spring at least and pull it down just a hair so you can get that washer right off, and then slide off that factory hammer spring, set it aside, grab our MCARBO hammer spring and drop it right on. Much easier to compress. And then slide that little washer right there. All right. You can still grab a coil and just make sure you got it fully seated. So you can see we got the hammer spring replaced. Everything's back, correct orientation, got our hammer strut washer there. All right, we're ready to go here. So just make sure you clean up any extra parts factory-wise that you don't need. So we got our trigger guard with the trigger return spring just sitting there ready to go. Now we'll go ahead and take our trigger and we're gonna drop it right in. You just want to make sure you get that trigger return spring captured, backside of that trigger there. And you can see we're lining up that trigger hinge pin there. So remember those 2 short little stainless steel pins. So what we'll do is insert it from the top, or insert it right there and flip it around so you can watch it, kind of line up that hole. And it helps too if you want to push right down on your tabletop, always handy. All right, sliding right in, just kind of move that trigger a little bit. There we go, good to go. All right, so we got one in there, we got our trigger return spring captured. All right, see your disconnector springs in there, perfect. Cruising along, pretty simple. All right, so now we can drop the hammer strut in there. You know, you can see it usually through that little window right there. And we want it to locate in that big hole down there in the bottom. So we're gonna drop it straight in, you know, that little washer in first. All right, and we got the tip of it there, the rounded portion, kind of just laying in there right this second. And what we wanna do is get it to locate simultaneously, just like that, inside that little cutout in the hammer. Kind of rounded edge portion pointing towards you, but in all honesty, it doesn't matter. It's really just a stamped edge from a stamp part, but just try to keep it the same. I always put the little rounded edges facing me. All right, and you can press down with your hammer. You want to line up that hole as best you can. Insert your pin from the bottom or the top. You know, it helps too. If you're just gonna insert it from the bottom, you can press down on your table and watch it all the way through, just like that, which is really nice and handy. And you can see we've got the hammer strut located inside the hammer just like that. And then you look through the window, you can see that hammer strut. Should be able to have enough clearance to go all the way through just like that. Pull that trigger. Oh man, that feels so much better. Feels like a real firearm now. I mean, just plastic triggers do not feel like a good touch point ever. So we're pretty much there at this point. Same deal. Your bolt lock spring is gonna go right inside the housing. Goes right in first. And then your bolt lock is gonna go like this, just like that. And then push it in. Compress it enough so we can get that universal pin, our last of the 3 pins. Just drop it right in. And it's gonna be a little snug, but it's a nice solid fit. So we're gonna have to tap this one in a little bit, but it's well worth having this good solid tight fit. because what it won't do is just fall out whenever you pull your trigger group out, which is what led to us making these pins. We've taken apart so many times and the pins just eventually fall out. You know, they're undersized, and it just depends what you got. This one wasn't too bad, so we got away with it. But stainless steel is always going to be a much more premium material, easier to find, and improved geometry. So you've got a nice engagement here with this hammer hinge pin. So we've got our replacement springs in there for a lighter trigger pull, a nice 6061 aircraft grade aluminum flat face trigger over travel adjustment, which we check that, release, and it bottoms out. So I love that little tighten it up and then back it off 2 full rotations. I mean, can't get any easier than that. All right, let's go ahead and drop this baby back in. So we got our trigger group and our receiver here. So we're gonna insert it just like this. Hammer's locked back. And what I like about this shock buffer is we designed it to where you could literally just drop it in like that. No real forcing it in to get it lined up. And the holes will basically line themselves right up. You know, the factory one, the intention was to do that, but it didn't quite ever line up very well. So the pins will go in there real easily, just like that. Nice, smooth, and clean. So we've got our trigger group back in the receiver, pretty much ready to go here. I mean, we're all done with this segment. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and replace that mag release there on the chassis. So grab your chassis or your stock, whatever you're working with here. And one thing you'll notice is it doesn't give you a whole lot of real estate, that plastic mag release, to really get any leverage to depress it. And this is a great time too, if you want to change out your mag well. You know, we got the Glock one in there now, which is what we run. This is a really easy way to change it out. So if you turn it upside down, like I've got here, and you press that mag release all the way, you'll be able to release and remove that mag well, just like that. And then to reinsert it, make sure you've got that mag release pressed all the way, let go, just kind of push on it, make sure it's in there good. Locates just like that, super simple. Go ahead and put your finger on the opposite side, that mag release there, something to press against, and take your 5/64" Allen key. We'll go ahead and just loosen up this screw. Now it is under a good amount of spring tension and is fairly tight, so we'll put some Loctite on here as well. You're gonna wanna strategically kind of pinch it like this. Use your offhand there to loosen it up the rest of the way, unless you like chasing springs. Nothing wrong with that. So we got our little screw here, our mag release, and spring. You can see how that all goes together. So this little mag release and screw, the plastic one, we don't need this. So we'll put this in our bag of stock parts. We do need this factory mag release spring. Go ahead and set it right back in position. Open up our aluminum extended magazine release, 6061 aircraft grade aluminum with our proprietary gatorback texturing. Feels absolutely amazing. Good little touch point there. So we're gonna put that in. Comes with the necessary flathead screw as well. Give it a nice flush, clean look. We'll go ahead and drop it right in like that. Put a little blue 242 Loctite on there, or P for plenty. All right, just don't want it working loose. Go ahead and set your extended magazine release onto the post there with the spring tension underneath of it. You want your 3/32" Allen key or T-handle like I got here. Try to get a bite on it if you can, but you do need to get something underneath there and kind of hold it all captured in place. So position your fingers accordingly to pinch it together while you're threading in that flathead screw with your 3/32" Allen key or T-handle. It was torqued on there real good from the factory, so don't be concerned with putting a little tension on it. All right, man, there we go. Nice. So we got a good extended magazine release there, giving us much more purchase, easier touch point to find. That gator texture, really love that. It's not too abrasive, but it's just enough to let you know you're right there on it. It's kind of like a hybrid of some knurling, but we've got our own little technique, which works great, love it. So we got our aluminum extended magazine release replaced. We're good to go there. Now we can go ahead and put the chassis back onto the receiver. So take your receiver and trigger group here. It's all been put back together already. Make sure those pins are nice and flush and recessed on both sides. Now we're gonna take our chassis here and drop it right over top of that receiver trigger guard assembly there. You wanna make sure you get it just right. Should kind of slowly compress together. You know, it can be a little snug, so don't be worried about it too much. It is still kind of a composite plastic there. All right, good. So we got it nice and flush. We can go ahead and start putting the takedown screws back in place. So these are the 2 takedown screws for the chassis system with the AR-15 pistol grip and buttstock. If you got the old hunting stock style, then it's just gonna be 2 similar takedown screws like this. All right, so long one's going through the top. Our little short one's gonna go through the bottom here. 5/32" Allen key or T-handle. Make sure you get those threads in good. Tighten it right up. Now grab your pistol grip. We're gonna insert it just like that. Just kind of drops right in. And you're just gonna have to hold it in place until you get those threads going. Take your longer takedown screw, If you like, good time to go ahead and put some Loctite on this. Blue 242 Loctite on there. Good generous application. It's not gonna hurt it. It's just gonna make sure it doesn't all fall apart, which this would be terrible. Just hold your hand right here on the back strap of the pistol grip and just pinch the top of the receiver there and just drop in that screw. Then take your offhand and just get it started at least. Kind of finding those threads. Once those threads start taking, you can shift your grip and snug it right up. Wipe off any excess Loctite you might have. All right guys, good, we're nearly there. So you can put your charging handle here on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. I'm gonna throw it on the right-hand side this time. Grab your 6061 aircraft grade aluminum charging handle by MCARBO, extended and wider. Nice spiral grooves in there. CNC machined, love it. And this thing looks cool, functions well, can't beat it. Really love this, so it'll drop right in like that, all right? And then it comes with the necessary shoulder bolt to make it locate. It's a little bit longer, so a good solid lock up there. You know, the charging handle's a little longer. Putting some blue 242 on these threads here. All right, drop it right in. Using that 5/32 inch Allen key or T-handle. It's the one you use most of the time here on the PC. And get it good and snug. And plenty of Loctite. If you got any Loctite down inside the charging handle, just use a little Q-tip to wipe it out. You can even throw a little CLP or gun oil on it there to neutralize it. You know, I was always the kid in school that used too much glue, so don't hold it against me. It's just a lifetime habit there. All right, good. So at this point, we are almost there. We've got 90% of it done, looking good so far. So our aluminum extended magazine release, aluminum flat trigger, our aluminum charging handle, all coming together real nicely here. All right, so we're all good here on the receiver. Let's go ahead and set this part aside. We do need to focus on the muzzle. Let's put that muzzle brake on there. All right, let's go ahead and open up our muzzle brake kit. All right, this one does come with the rock set. Soon enough, we're just gonna make it mandatory for the rock set because we still get some guys returning them to us, and you've got blue 242 Loctite shot all the way through it, and it's like, I don't know, man, it just didn't work. Well, Rockset's got a 1500 degree temp rating. Red Loctite's got like a 500 or 600 degree temp rating, and blue's got like a 300. So for something like this, firearm application, Rockset is the way to go. Now, it's still removable, because it's got the strength properties of the blue Loctite, but the temp properties of nothing like it. So it's a really great application for what we're doing here. All right, A311 stress-proof carbon steel muzzle brake. So you got a big port in the top here, works like a compensator to help keep that muzzle down, and nice 45 degree cuts here to redirect the gases to help reduce that felt recoil. You say felt recoil, it's not like it's hurting. It's stabilizing the platform. So you can get consecutive rounds on target very quickly, very accurately, which is most important. So I was just watching another gun review today where a guy was kind of beating up on one of the carbines, and it's like kind of talking some crap about felt recoil. That's what we're all talking about here, which is good. We're all talking about platform stability. So you take that little thread protector off right there, and you got a little O-ring still hanging out there. It'll just take up some of that gap between the muzzle brake and the shoulder there on the barrel. And then take the rock set, good generous portion. It's not gonna hurt anything. You know, we want it to really cure over that 24-hour period and hold it as strong as possible. You don't want your muzzle brake getting loose. You know, we're gonna get it nice and timed here. So you got your little jam nut here. You're gonna thread that on all the way back. Take this little tempered steel wrench. We're gonna crush that jam nut against that O-ring there. All right, so you wanna make sure you tighten it on all the way. Now we're gonna go ahead and thread on the muzzle brake. All right, good. It's not anywhere near timed, okay? So that's 12 o'clock right there, this top rail portion right here. So I'm just gonna back it off just a hair, get some masking tape, enough to wrap 3 rotations around that muzzle brake. The reason I say 3 and exactly 3 is because if you're gonna use that 13/16 wrench, we designed this brake in a way that you add 3 layers of thickness, it's gonna fit that wrench perfectly. So always thinking about the assembly process. So there's 1 wrap, there's 2, and there's 3 right there. Now we'll see how well this fits on the 13/16. Just want to test, yeah, perfect. I got the adjustable wrench as well, just in case. I mean, this is a great alternative, and you can put as many wraps in there as you want. All right, so I'm gonna use 13/16 just because it's here already. So the idea is we take our blue tempered steel wrench here, get it on that jam nut. We had to have this thin wrench for the jam nut because the jam nut's only got so much thickness to it. And then we're gonna tighten them against each other. So we're gonna tighten the jam nut into the muzzle brake into the jam nut. So first, you know, we got it timed where we want it. This is the 12 right here. So we got it generally right where we want it. So we gotta tighten up that jam nut a little bit to take up some of that slack between the two. All right, it's pretty much snug right now, so this is where we can start tightening process. So I'm gonna rotate the muzzle brake a little bit, and I'm gonna rotate the jam nut a little bit, trying to get the two together. Now, if you got a vise or something, I would highly recommend using the vise. I'm just doing it on the tabletop here just so you can watch me struggle. I just always like to demonstrate with simple tools. So yeah, you can do it without a vise. I mean, you can do anything that you set your mind to, but if you got a vise, go for it. All right, so that's pretty dang snug. Let it cure overnight, 24 hours, and you're good to go. We left that little tiny O-ring in there. You can see it kind of got squished a little bit, so you can pull it out a little so that it takes up that gap nicely. You know, you don't want it looking all crazy on you. You know, in this unique scenario, if you've got a little pick, that'll work way better to kind of pry out this little O-ring. You know, and all these barrels are going to be different, so you may find that you don't even need the O-ring. It may just time on there perfectly without it. So it's all going to be up to you and what you see when you get it on there. So let me check this alignment here. Ah, that's perfect. All right, so we can go ahead and remove the tape. Nice. Nice and flat here. This is 12. Perfect. Beautiful. All right, so it timed easy and nice, and you can see that O-ring took up just enough gap there. So by all means, use it. Give it a little cleaner look there. So we're ready to put the rest of the PC back together. We are done putting everything together at this point. All right, now that we got the muzzle brake installed on the barrel, that was the last item here for this build. So we can go ahead and lock the bolt back just to make it easier. All right, pull it back at the bolt stop. Go ahead and insert the barrel just like that, lined up 12 o'clock. Rotate it towards you, 45, and then rotate it back. Lock it in place. We're good to go, man. All done. Look at that. Beautiful. All right, let's do a quick little function check. Place it on safe, pull the trigger, nothing, good. Fire, pull the trigger. Oh man, that is nice. Let's listen for that reset. There we go. Let's measure this trigger pull. That is beautiful. All right, let's see what we got for a modified trigger pull. 2 pounds, 9.7 ounces. Let's take one more to confirm. 2 pounds, 11.1 ounces. Well, there you go, guys. A nice 2-pound reduction for your Ruger PC Carbine, not to mention all-in-one comprehensive build for the Ruger PC Carbine. Love this. Looking forward to what you guys think about it. Took the best of the best of what we had and put it into one easy to bundle, one easy video, hopefully to follow. Love what we were able to do here, man. Really excited about it. I mean, this is a great little carbine. Feels phenomenal, the trigger pull, as it always has since we started with the spring kit. It was a couple years ago, so really excited to see. We're still holding a good 2-pound, nearly 50% trigger pull reduction across the board, even on the new models. Really love the new models, what Ruger did here with the MOE stock, the pistol grip, the chassis system. Much more functional, much more tactical configuration for the PC Carbine. We got more stuff to go here, so excited to see what else you guys have in mind for the Ruger PC Carbine. Let us know, man. Comment here. Get on over to the forum, the MCARBO Brotherhood, do a lot of giveaways, a lot of fun stuff, more engagement there. Loving it. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate all your support. Always appreciate a subscribe or whatever on YouTube. Share this stuff in the forums. Help us get the word out. We love that. Give us any ideas you got, whatever feedback you got. We're always interested to hear it. Even if it's good, bad, the ugly, we take it, man. As always, thank you, MCARBO Brotherhood. Appreciate your support. Happy shooting.